What if the most terrifying mysteries you'll ever face aren't out there in the world, but deep inside your own mind? What if the dreams you forget each morning are ancient messages from the soul, symbols from a vast, unseen world that shapes your thoughts, your fears, and your very identity? And what if the person you think you are, the one who walks through the world with reason and logic, is only the surface, a mask, while a far more powerful force lies beneath, unseen, untouched, but always pulling the strings? This is the haunting terrain of the psychology of the unconscious, a profound and daring psychological journey by Carl Gustav Jung, the legendary Swiss psychiatrist who forever changed the way we see the human mind. But for those bold enough to look inward, it offers a doorway to self-knowledge so raw, so real, and so transformative that it can split you open, piece you back together as someone entirely new. Published in 1912, this book didn't just challenge Freud. It shattered the walls of conventional psychology. It peeled back the layers of the human psyche and revealed something ancient, primal, and deeply spiritual. Jung wasn't just offering a theory, he was revealing a map into the dream world, into myth, into shadow, and into the unconscious. This is not an easy read. It's not for the faint of heart. In the next chapter of this video, we dive deep into Jung's gripping exploration, where dreams speak in symbols. The ego meets its shadow, and the soul reaches toward something greater than the self. Welcome to the psychology of the unconscious. This is where your true story begins. The descent into the depths of the mind, the journey begins, not with a plot, but with a confrontation, one that shook the very foundations of modern psychology. Jung stood at a crossroads. Once a close disciple of Sigmund Freud, he had begun to see the limits of Freud's vision. Freud believed the unconscious was merely a reservoir of repressed sexual desires, primitive instincts trying to claw their way into consciousness. But to Jung, that was only part of the story. He sensed something far older, far deeper. They were stories, messages from the unconscious, encoded in symbols, drawn from the ancient memory of the human race. To understand them, one had to speak the language of myth, religion, and ritual. Her dreams echo the story of Persephone's descent into the underworld, the alchemical marriage of opposites, the death and rebirth of the hero. And these are not coincidences, they are archetypes. In her visions, we witness the battle between opposites, masculine and feminine, spirit and body, conscious and unconscious. It's a psychic struggle, not unlike the myth of Osiris or the alchemical transformation of base metal into gold. The unconscious, Jung argued, wasn't just a dumping ground for shameful urges. We are torn between our ego, the mask we wear, and our deeper, truer self. The self with a capital S, Jung, redefines it as a broader psychic energy, capable of art, religion, creativity, and transformation. Where Freud looked downward into pathology, Jung looked upward, toward transcendence.
We must make the descent.
Jung confronts the concept of inflation when the ego identifies too strongly with unconscious contents, mistaking itself for a god, a prophet, or a savior. He warns of the dangers of interpreting dreams literally, or worse, of becoming possessed by their power. The unconscious, he reminds us, is not a playground. In the next part, we follow this journey to its end and discover what lies on the other side of the unconscious. It is a sacred place, and like all sacred places, it demands humility, reverence, and courage. We must meet the parts of ourselves we've rejected, our fears, our shadows, our forgotten dreams. It was a living, breathing realm of forgotten truths, a vast ocean filled with symbols, myths, but it was in that exile that he found his true voice, and archetypes that connected every human being across time, culture, and civilization. To prove this, Jung turned to something many scientists dismissed: dreams. Her writings are filled with strange images: gods, serpents, temples, cosmic symbols. On the surface, they seem chaotic. But Jung sees a pattern, a narrative of transformation. Dreams, he believed, weren't just random firings of a sleeping brain. We are watching the soul at work. We are witnessing the psyche, stripped bare, wrestling with itself. Every dream is a riddle, Every symbol is a doorway, and every interpretation is a mirror, forcing us to look inward and ask, who am I beneath my name, my role, my face? In The Psychology of the Unconscious, Jung follows the dream series of a woman he calls Miss Miller, a real patient whose dreams and visions he meticulously analyzes, a hidden layer of the mind that's not personal but shared. In it live the timeless forms and energies that have shaped every religion, every myth, every human story. The mother, the hero, the trickster, the shadow. These archetypes are not learned, they are inherited. They surface in our dreams, our fantasies, even our psychoses. Miss Miller's visions, Jung explains, mirror the great myths of humanity. Here, Jung introduces one of his most groundbreaking ideas, the collective unconscious. As Jung guides us through Miss Miller's symbolic world, he shows how her mind is performing an ancient ritual, individuation, the process of becoming whole. Jung believed that each of us is on that same journey, whether we know it or not. But this is no easy task. The unconscious doesn't yield its secrets without a price. As the book moves deeper into the analysis, the terrain becomes darker. The conflict between Jung and Freud is now more than intellectual, it is spiritual. Freud saw the libido as purely sexual energy. In doing so, Jung stepped away from the scientific orthodoxy of his time and into exile. And so did countless others. By the middle of the book, we are no longer just analyzing a patient. Jung doesn't offer simple answers. He invites us into the labyrinth. And once you enter, you begin to realize you were never just one person. We're always a multitude, waiting to be remembered. This is where the true mystery begins. As we venture further into the final chapters of The Psychology of the Unconscious, the descent gives way to something even more profound, the possibility of transformation. But this isn't the hollow kind promised by self-help slogans or the superficial call to find yourself. It's something far older, far more demanding, a true metamorphosis of the soul. Ms. Miller's visions, once chaotic and fragmented, begin to align into a sacred pattern, signaling that her unconscious is no longer merely whispering symbols and dreams. It is forging a new identity from within. Jung suggests that the psyche does not simply want to be analyzed. It yearns to become whole. This process, individuation, is the lifelong journey where the conscious and unconscious minds meet. Not in opposition, but in partnership. It is the alchemical merging of opposites, light and shadow, reason and instinct, masculine and feminine, not to reach perfection, but to reach integration. Through powerful imagery from myth, religion, and art, Jung explores the sacred union of anima and animus, inner figures that dwell within each of us and hold the key to true self-understanding. Without facing these inner forces, we remain trapped in projection, endlessly seeking fulfillment in others, blind to the truth that it is ourselves we are truly searching for. Yet this road to integration is paved not with ease, but confrontation, most notably with the shadow, the repressed, disowned twin of the ego, carrying our shame, rage, fears, and forbidden desires. While most flee from the shadow, projecting it outward or burying it deeper, Jung insists that true healing only begins when we face it. To embrace the shadow is to reclaim our full humanity, not to surrender to evil, but to become whole. As Jung writes, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This truth cuts deeper than theory. It marks the path of the wounded healer, the inner warrior. At this point, the book transcends its original form as a case study. It becomes a mythic journey through rituals of initiation, archetypal symbols of rebirth, and the self's awakening. Jung boldly declares what few scientists dare to say, that the psyche is spiritual. Not in a dogmatic religious sense, but in the sense that the soul, left to unfold naturally, seeks meaning, purpose, and connection to the eternal. Dreams are not random noise, they are sacred messages. Myths are not childish fictions. They are symbolic expressions of timeless truth. In the closing chapters, Jung revisits his break with Freud, not to dismiss Freud's legacy, but to illuminate its boundaries. Freud saw the mind as mechanical, Jung saw it as mysterious. And mystery, Jung reminds us, is not something to solve, but something to live. Miss Miller's journey becomes a mirror of the collective human journey, from fragmentation to wholeness, from repression to revelation, from the ego's confinement to the self's unfolding. Yet this is not a destination, but a spiral, a cycle that never ends. The unconscious is not a closed book. It is a living presence, always guiding, challenging, revealing. And so the book ends not with finality, but with a call to turn inward, to listen, to trust the symbols that rise from within us, even when they disturb us, and to honor the ancient wisdom carried in our dreams, our visions, and our pain. In a world addicted to speed and surface, Jung gently, but powerfully, reminds us that the greatest journey we can ever take is not across the earth or into space, but into the wild, untamed depths of our own minds. And in that wilderness, we are not alone. We walk alongside every soul that has ever asked, in quiet desperation or bold defiance, who am I really, and what waits for me beneath the mask? In most books, the characters live on the page, given names, faces, actions. But in the psychology of the unconscious, the characters live inside us. She's the silent center of the book, her writings the raw material of Jung's analysis. She never knew Jung personally, never sat across from him in therapy, and yet her dreams, visions, and poetic expressions became a gateway into the collective unconscious. They are not fictional personalities, but psychological forces, archetypes, shadows, fragments of the soul. He arrives as a wise man, a critic, a warrior, or a god. Everything you deny about yourself gathers here. Every cruel thought, every violent urge, every unspoken fear. The shadow appears in dreams as monsters, enemies, dark doubles. At its heart, Jung is wrestling with the question, what does it mean to be human? But its purpose is not to destroy you, it wants to make you whole. If you face it, Jung believed that by severing ourselves from myth, from ritual, from dreams, we had lost something essential. We became rational, but empty, logical, but spiritually numb. Miss Miller, with her ecstatic visions and symbolic language, becomes a case study in this crisis. In a culture obsessed with positivity, Jung reminds us that healing begins in the shadows, that every gift carries a wound, and every wound hides a gift. Her unconscious is screaming to reconnect with something eternal, against conformity, against denial, against forgetting the ancient wisdom that still lives inside you. When ignored, he becomes rigid and tyrannical. But when integrated, he becomes the inner compass. They are living bridges between the conscious and unconscious mind. When we ignore them, we fall into neurosis. But when we engage with them, through art, dreams, reflection, we awaken. It's about the soul's journey through fire, myth, and madness, to the sacred center of being. Not the ego, not your name, not your job. The self is who you are beneath all masks. It is symbolized in mandalas, sacred circles, gods, and heroes. It is the goal of the journey, but never something you can achieve. It's only approach. But as a symbol of modern humanity, fragmented longing, unknowingly echoing ancient archetypes in her inner world. She becomes the every person. Her spiritual hunger, romantic fantasies, and symbolic dreams reflect something timeless, the desire to become whole. The most prominent character is Miss Frank Miller, though we never truly meet her. Miss Miller isn't portrayed as a patient with problems to fix, but the deeper characters are not human, they are archetypes. The anima, the inner feminine in men, represents emotion, creativity, intuition, the soul's voice. She appears in dreams as a lover, a mother, a muse, or a witch. She is mysterious, dangerous, alluring. She cannot be controlled. She must be honored. The animus, the inner masculine in women, is reason, logic, authority, the spirit of direction. And then there is the shadow, perhaps the most fearsome figure of all. Lastly, the self, the central archetype, the ultimate integration of all the others. The core themes of this book are vast, yet intimate. One powerful theme is the spiritual crisis of the modern world. Another theme is the power of symbols. Jung teaches that symbols are not just pretty metaphors. Perhaps the most moving theme is the necessity of darkness. As Jung writes in the spirit of the book, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not a slogan, a lifelong battle. This book isn't just about psychology. Carl Jung didn't write the psychology of the unconscious to impress the academic world. He wrote it because he saw something terrifying and beautiful unfolding within the human psyche, a place where your dreams matter more than your job title, where every strange thought and recurring nightmare may carry the weight of ancient myth, a quiet catastrophe of the soul, a disconnect between modern man and the vast symbolic world within. It comes from embracing who we truly are, light, dark, and everything in between. This book is not light reading. It doesn't hand you answers. It pulls you into a labyrinth, a place where logic fails and symbols speak. It forces a choice. Will you live only on the surface of yourself, or will you go deeper? Because here's the truth. What you ignore in your unconscious controls you. What you face transforms you. If you're brave enough to look, really look, you might just begin to understand the wild, ancient intelligence that lives beneath your thoughts. Jung reminds us that wholeness doesn't come from pretending to be good. The psychology of the unconscious is not just a book. It's a mirror, one that doesn't flatter but reveals. So, who should read this? If you've ever felt like your dreams are trying to tell you something, you've ever sensed that there's more to you than meets the eye, if you're tired of shallow answers and hungry for inner truth, every click helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life and keeps the wisdom flowing. Thanks for being part of the journey. Then this book is for you. If this story moved you, challenged your thinking, or simply sparked your curiosity, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.